600 million empty homes spread across China, towering apartment blocks, silent neighborhoods, entire cities built for lives that never arrived. At first it sounds impossible, an exaggeration, clickbait. But the deeper you look, the stranger and more human this story becomes. Imagine standing in the middle of a modern city at sunset. The buildings are tall, clean, newly painted. The streets are wide. Traffic lights blink patiently at empty intersections. Windows stretch upward floor after floor, but almost none of them glow. No televisions, no laughter, no dinners being cooked. Just concrete, glass, and silence. This is not a movie set. This is real. And the question is no longer whether these homes exist, but why? To understand how a country could build enough empty housing to shelter nearly half the world's population, we have to go back, not centuries, but just a few decades, into a time of fear, ambition, and unstoppable momentum. In the late 1970s, China was transforming. For generations, most people lived in rural villages. Cities were small. Opportunities were limited. Then something shifted. Economic reforms opened the door to private enterprise, foreign investment, and rapid urban growth. Suddenly, cities were no longer just places to live. They were symbols of progress. And housing became the engine. Local governments discovered something powerful. Land could be leased to developers for massive revenue. Developers discovered something even more powerful. Real estate wasn't just shelter. It was a guaranteed investment. Prices always went up, or so it seemed. Families noticed too. For many Chinese households, property became more than a home. It became savings, insurance, status, a requirement for marriage. Parents worked their entire lives to buy apartments for children who were still in school. Some families owned 2, 3, even 4 apartments, often never planning to live in them. The logic was simple. If you don't buy now, you'll never afford it later. So construction accelerated. Cities expanded outward, then outward again. Fields disappeared. Villages were absorbed. Skyscrapers rose where farmland once fed generations. Entire districts were planned years before residents existed. And for a while, it worked. China urbanized faster than any nation in history. Hundreds of millions moved into cities. GDP soared. Construction cranes became permanent features of the skyline. The world watched in awe. But beneath the surface, something fragile was forming. Homes were being built faster than people could fill them. Not because people didn't need shelter, but because homes were no longer being built for living. They were being built to be owned, traded, held, and leveraged. Apartments sat empty because renting them out was risky. Selling them was more profitable later, and leaving them unused carried little penalty. Over time, entire neighborhoods became financial assets instead of communities. Then came the ghost cities. Places like Ordos, Kangbashi, and dozens more. Fully planned urban centers with malls, schools, offices, and apartment towers, but barely any residents. Some eventually filled partially. Many did not. At night, aerial footage revealed the truth. Darkness. Mile after mile of unlit windows. And still, construction continued. Why stop when the system depended on building? Local governments needed land sales to fund budgets. Developers needed new projects to repay old debts. Banks needed loans to keep flowing. Everyone was invested in motion. Stopping meant collapse. Then demographics entered the picture. China's population growth slowed, then stopped, then quietly reversed. Fewer children were born. Young people delayed marriage. Many could not afford homes in cities where prices had detached from wages. Migration slowed. Demand weakened. But supply had already exploded. In 2023, A senior official from China's National Bureau of Statistics acknowledged publicly what many already suspected. There was a serious oversupply of housing. An expert estimate followed, suggesting that existing vacant homes could house 3 billion people. 3 billion. More than double China's population. That number traveled across the world in headlines, disbelief, and speculation. Could it really be that much? The truth is complex. Counting empty homes isn't simple. Some are unfinished. Some are held temporarily. Some are used occasionally. But even conservative estimates point to a staggering reality. Hundreds of millions of homes are not lived in. And now the consequences are arriving. Developers began to fail. Giant real estate firms defaulted on debt. Construction stalled. Projects were abandoned halfway, leaving skeletal buildings behind. Buyers who had paid for homes that were never completed protested in the streets, still paying mortgages for apartments that didn't exist. For ordinary people, the promise of stability cracked. For the economy, the impact was enormous. Real estate had grown to represent a massive share of China's economic activity. When it slowed, everything felt it. From steel to cement, from local government budgets to household confidence. And suddenly, the question shifted. What do you do with 600 million empty homes? You can't move half the world into China. You can't demolish cities overnight. You can't magically create demand where demographics no longer support it. Some suggest converting them into affordable housing. Others propose opening migration. Some hope time will slowly absorb the excess. But time has its own costs. Empty buildings decay. Infrastructure still requires maintenance. Loans still demand repayment. And the social trust that once fueled the system is harder to rebuild. Yet this story is not just about China. It's a warning. Around the world, housing is increasingly treated as an investment first and shelter second. Prices climb faster than incomes. Cities expand beyond necessity. People are locked out while buildings stand empty. China's scale makes it dramatic, but the pattern is global. At its heart, this is not a story about buildings. It's a story about belief. The belief that growth never ends. That prices only rise. That concrete can safely store the future. 600 million empty homes stand today as silent witnesses to what happens when momentum replaces purpose. They remind us that cities are meant to breathe, to live, to hold stories, not just value. And the biggest question remains unanswered. Will these empty towers one day fill with life? Or will they stand as monuments to an era that mistook construction for progress? Because the world is watching and learning.